listening to Malmborg Report, where we discuss the intersection of creativity, work, and the systems in which they are shaped. My guest today is a fierce advocate for the worker and for his communities. He has been active, very active in the Amazon labor movement. We happen to be co-workers at Amazon in upstate New York. His name is Nick Morin. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, no problem. So give me kind of your background story. We know each other, obviously, but I'm sure there's something new I can glean from you.
I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia at a very early age. My family is not from the American South. My mother's a German immigrant from Hamburg, Germany. Kind of felt like we didn't really fit into the, existing social milieu. The church, and a very conservative white Protestant church, is very big in the South, and we did not go to church. I was exposed to race and class at a very early age, and my mother being a teacher and not having grown up with history of racism, or at least structural racism, like coming from a country that has formerly allowed slavery within its borders, that is. We'll get into the colonies and whatever. But she made it very clear to me about prejudice, about seeing how these systems work, how my privilege and how our background had nothing to do with us being better or anything. It was about these structures and these opportunities that people do not get. So that was kind of like the beginning of it. And then we left for 4 years to Jakarta, Indonesia, which was another kind of education. And there's hundreds of millions of people. It's a very populated country. It's the most populous Muslim country. I was evacuated at 11 years old in 98 because of political turmoil. The U.S. installed dictator Suharto was not able to maintain the food subsidies, the rice subsidies and gas subsidies. So the student movement there got rid of Suharto, and then they had a democratic election 50 years later. So that also made a big difference in my upbringing, talking to people there about their experiences, about Islam, why people didn't talk about politics. So I've always been interested in how does the world work? And it never kind of makes sense to me. Why are some people able to have a life that's so easy and other people have a really hard time, from these very human-made systems that don't seem to make very much sense to me.
Yeah. So you got to experience a wide range in the global context, having a direct immigration pattern from your mother to the U.S. created a unique cultural perspective to begin with. And then spending time in Indonesia, you got to experience an entirely different culture during your formative years. And I imagine that's highly informed your perspective of creating alliances, building bridges in terms of movements to create change here in our community in upstate New York. So I just want to know, how long have you been in upstate New York?
I've been here since basically 2016. My parents moved to Cornwall, New York to retire. And a lot of people find that strange.
I kind of get it.
But, West Point's right next by. My dad has base privileges from his work. So, going to the commissary and PX and doctor's offices. They're all around the corner. And then my brother's in the city, in New York City. So close by.
Yeah.
And everything else was just too expensive on the West Coast, too.
Yeah. New York seems comparatively affordable compared to California.
Yeah.
But,
it's a beautiful area.
Yeah. The sweeping views of the Hudson Highlands and, it is just a beautiful place. The entire Hudson Valley and broader geographic zones of eastern upstate New York are definitely providing for great landscapes, rivers, mountains, lakes. There's just a lot to see there. So on the topic of Amazon, how long have you been working at Amazon?
I started May 16th, 2022.
When you joined Amazon, did you sort of go in there with like, I need to check this place out. I need to organize this place because it's pretty reasonably well documented, at least, that Amazon is known to be a workplace that is rife with poor working conditions, employee suppression. So were you drawn to Amazon because of these things? Or was it like many others, like myself, where it's just like, I need a job? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of employment opportunities in the Hudson Valley. And it's like, man, Amazon pays okay. I can do this. So what was your experience?
That was a little bit of both. Like at that point, I really needed a job. I had been applying for jobs and been a little bit maybe too selective and applying to jobs I thought I was uniquely qualified to do. And I got my last projection and I was like, I just need a job. And my living situation was not tenable. And so I had to figure something out with housing. And I luckily was able to. And I'd heard so much about Amazon and it was a source of interest in organizing it. And like we think of, and I always think of these United Auto Workers or the factories and the assembly lines as being good jobs. And those are only good jobs because they're union jobs. They're not like, they're very difficult on people's bodies, even with the union protections. Those jobs are back-breaking or knee-breaking. So I did join it to have a job. I needed a job, employment, and they do, as you know, when you apply to Amazon, they get back to you really quick.
Right. Yeah, you can, sit there on your phone, go to their website, click a shift, and 10 days later you're starting, right? Like they don't even interview you. So they do have this kind of like high volume intake model, but that brings us to some of the other problems, including a high output model where the employees are let go, subtly discouraged from staying around, whether by poor incentives with things like minimal raises, delayed benefits, all that sort of stuff. So during your time at Amazon, in the early stages, what was your perception of the workplace and what was going on in your head over your first few months there?
I think it was just like, there's a lot of fear. Like it was just like a very isolating, alienating workplace. Like I didn't know anyone there. I made a few friends. They left pretty quickly after I started, but having the sense that I don't really know the expectations, I don't know all the rules because the turnover is so high. Like how easy is it to get fired? And my mom at that time, I think it was what Amazon wants us to believe is that it's extremely easy to get fired at Amazon for any kind of policies that you don't know about. You do and you do not know about. I had a slight accident while I was there, driving a machine. And the way that you've gone through the training. The training when I started was a little bit better. We got a little more hands-on. We got to do the stowing at the library when you're walking around, so you're not driving the machine, having to deal with driving the machine and doing your job, just focusing on the mechanics of doing your job while pushing around a cart. But there's no understanding of like what your expectations are, how to do your job.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I think that is perhaps one of the most confounding aspects of the workplace culture that sure, you're nominally trained on what you're supposed to do in like a repetitious manner, such as, scan this box, scan this code, do this, do that. But there's hardly any context given to you when you get there. There's no sense of like, okay, this is what your day actually looks like. You come in, check in, get your powered industrial truck, a pit, grab a cage in stow, go to this. Like, there's basically no explanation of what a shift even looks like. There is an idea that exists, throw someone into the fire, and that's a good way to learn, right? In some context, that's fine, but there's just so little guidance where just a few simple pointers would save someone weeks of frustration at Amazon.
Oh, yeah. And then they make it worse because they call you over within your first 30 days or your ramp up or whatever they call it, where they keep on nitpicking on every little thing you're doing.
And you barely know what it is at that point, right? Like,
They don't even tell you where all the bins are. Like I remember getting it like, where cantilever? Where's that? Like, what is that? Barrel?
Yeah.
What is that? I have no idea what that is.
Right, right, right.
But luckily, I had some coworkers who, had told me some of the tips and tricks that you can use to kind of
Yes,
stay under the
yes.
radar. They call it stay under the radar.
Right, right. And it is fascinating that I've never thought of it from this lens, but in a way, Amazon is essentially outsourcing a lot of their training model to their regular employees who are in
Mhm.
no way given any incentive or compensation for doing anything of the sort.
Yeah, the learning ambassadors who were teaching classes, and a few of them quit because they felt like management was trying to pressure them into certifying people as being trained when they didn't feel competent. Like, I'm not going to sign up on this person.
Yeah, it's a tough system. Um, Another
Yeah.
thing of interest, another example is during the onboarding process, they give you a mountain of paperwork to sign off on in the
Hmm.
training room. Yet, essentially, what they want you to do is check off everything before you even do any of the things on the papers. And that just goes unchecked, like in perpetuity. Because it's a battle. You, as
Hmm.
a new hire, you're not going to win. You know, like if you go in there and you're like, "Hey, let me sign this later," they'll be like, "No, that's not what we do."
Right. Right. It's kind of like Amazon as an entity, I think, to think about it. Not only is it just taking the logistics industry and trying to create just one monolith, one monopoly, which it's already successfully doing pretty much,
Yeah,
but it's also trying to take all the risk and put it downstream onto the workers and other suppliers so that Amazon doesn't have to deal with any liability. Whether it's like when we get on our pits and we have to do the checklist, right? Like, I don't know whether, are we allowed to go take it for a spin first before shift? I mean,
right.
I guess. I mean, we should probably, and I mean, that's one of the things we should do. We should be like, all right, well, you want us to perform this thing, but you also say safety is the most important thing. So maybe, we're gonna have a 5 minute driving our powered industrial trucks because they are breaking down a lot. So maybe we should do a 5 minute like drive through with our pit to make sure it's operating safely. And as trained, certified people, this is we take our job seriously. This is what we're gonna do.
Right.
Now, how would management react to that? I think we know how management would react.
Yeah, they would circle back and be like, "We appreciate your input.
Right.
Have a nice day." So, in terms of what employees are going through as people when they are there,
Right.
um, and the sense of confusion, powerlessness,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
fear, we do find that there is still, um, you know, relative apathy in the Amazon workplace. The apathy is sort of induced by the culture with the
Mm-hmm.
fast hiring, fast firing, this sort of vibe of like, okay, we've got this tuition benefit. You need to go get your, associates, whatever, get the hell out of here.
Right.
Um, what should organizers be thinking in terms of how do you get this place primed for this?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a matter of the greater vision. People do care about something, so it's finding what people care about. And it's the job sucks. Having people like say it out loud to you that the job sucks and that it could be a lot better. And that's the inspirational part is like, this job could be a great job. This job, I mean, depending on where the person's from, like from some warehouse workers, of course, Amazon's a piece of cake. It doesn't pay me as well, but it's not a 12-hour day. I think it's the broader issue is like and the greater vision is more important. Like that this could be a great job, first of all, and two, that on the way there, even if we don't get a contract tomorrow, but we're still building a working class organization, a participatory or democratic working class organization that can deal with people's real material needs in their lives, whether
Yeah.
it's transportation or housing or healthcare. If you think about it that way, if there's really a million Amazon workers in the country, and I think 700 something thousand of those are, warehouse workers. I think the rest are drivers, but 700,000, let's say, workers. That's a huge group of people that, well organized, could have a huge impact on the country. Um,
Right. Right. That is statistically one of your neighbors. The odds are someone within a few blocks of you. someone down your road, down your street is probably working at an Amazon facility.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we have this great opportunity to do this, and we can join together and make people's lives better. And that's, I think, the struggle is that the last 50 years of working class history is like repeated defeats and incomes going down, cost of living going up, more precarious work, all these technological improvements that really workers should benefit from, but really it just means making legal things that used to be illegal, like wage theft or wage discrimination. Talked to my mother about this. She's kind of a left of center progressive in her beliefs, and she knows what she believes, but she's under this impression, which I think a lot of people are, that she doesn't have the right knowledge or education to intervene in our politics as a citizen. Like, oh, I don't know how it works. I'm like, but you know that you're not okay with people not affording rent, or you think it's unacceptable that your neighbors are hungry, and it's not your job to figure out exactly how to fix it, but to express that and make sure that the politicians and others understand that there are people who are not afraid to speak up and that say this is not okay, and that this is a choice. And that's the big thing, is the artificial scarcity. This is a choice, and that the rich people like Jeff Bezos and the world, even if you don't believe in unions, and even if you think we get paid well, like taking away money from Jeff Bezos and Amazon reduces their ability to oppress us more.
It's also like something that I believe would be, significantly popular. It could be bipartisan.
Right.
Who wouldn't want to take, a stack of bills out of Bezos's pocket, right? Like, and again, that sounds a little, provocative. Some would say that's stealing.
Right. Well, that's we have to have that conversation, because there's this, because, you really have to interrogate, well, what, where does money come from and who makes the money?
It was already stolen.
Well, right. Well, but like some people might really think that Jeff Bezos deserves all his money. And I don't think they really interrogate that. I don't think they really think about that. I think that, oh, like I work hard. If you work hard and you make a lot of money, that's, I work hard for my money.
Right. When you're talking about the 1%, you're not talking about like, oh, industriousness or an industrious individual just happened to work 10,000 times harder than everyone else.
Right. Yeah,
At that point, you're talking about the scale of corporate power. You're talking about political influence. You're talking about benefiting from having wealth and building wealth with wealth. So you're not even talking about individual merit at that point. You're talking about our political and economic system.
Right. And that's, I think, also the other part of it is like, you are just a number, and a lot of people feel disrespected. They feel like just a number at Amazon, which is true, but that is precisely the difference. Like, he does not deserve his wealth, and he won't even feel it. It's just you and I are being underpaid, grossly underpaid, to amass that fortune.
Yeah. And I think, centering the message around the inequity, I think, is going to be powerful. People have to come around on their hangups of like, oh, geez, Bezos earned this, right? But I think once you maybe cut through a little bit of that, people sense the visceral unfairness of the whole situation.
And if they don't care about that, then like you can just point out, I mean, it's an extremely inefficient operation, and it's just mind-boggling to think it's such an inefficient operation, and yet they make so much money. But if we had control over how we did our work, I have a feeling we'd be so much more productive and have so much more paid time off doing our work and managing what times when it's slack and when it's not, and like cleaning up the warehouse or whatever. But of course that's not what they want.
Another point I wanted to make to you, you brought up the example of someone who might have beliefs about the way our society should work, but they essentially feel dejected in terms of their ability to impact change or do anything about it. In the context of our current political moment, there's a recurring theme of democracy in decline. Democracy is dead. But it sort of dawned on me that democracy is not this preordained system. Democracy is a culture.
Yeah, definitely.
And in many ways, I see the contemporary labor movement as an excellent opportunity to essentially rebuild a culture of democratic institutions and society.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it's definitely one of the institutions left in the United States that does have democratic participation. That also brings people together from all sorts of different backgrounds to solve common problems and overcoming those differences. Like, we don't have to like everybody in our union. We do have to respect each other and believe we're all on the same page. I think luckily most of the working class, I think, understands like kind of we're all in the same boat, more or less. But there is some distrust. There's plenty of people that, in our politics that are running for office or boardrooms of giant companies that have totally different desires and wishes than it's in our interest. But the labor unions is probably one of the only institutions that have the power to do something about that and to make people feel powerful. Being on a picket line with your brothers and sisters in the movement.
Sure, take the ultra wealthy off the board because they're in a different situation. But broadly speaking, what unites everyone is the fact that we work for a living and we generally are in an imperfect or at times very imperfect relationship with our employers. And with that comes ample opportunity for camaraderie, collective action. Yeah. And because our culture of America is based on working and working, it kind of makes sense that the labor union would be the way you fix democracy in America. Because that's what we do. We work. So while we're at work, let's do some democracy as well.
Right. I mean, we know how to, like we know our coworkers, what they're good at, what they're not, and we could organize it, the leaders in our workplace can organize the place better than the chosen leaders that the management has figured out, who have a piece of paper, who doesn't have a piece of paper.
Right.
And that's like one of the things, but that's the one other thing I recently learned about Amazon was that they actually, for people who rise the ranks to become a area manager, right? If they don't have a bachelor, they're paid less than managers that come in from college.
Right.
Which I think is like, to me, that's like, wow, that's like the insult to injury.
Yeah. We've covered a lot. I think we've talked a lot about the interplay of community organizing and how it goes into the labor organizing, the sort of unique role of labor organizing in our current political landscape. I just want to know, like, how are you feeling? How are you holding up in light of everything we're going through, all the hats you wear, all the efforts you make? How are you doing?
Thanks. I'm doing okay. I mean, it's a little bit the period of, I guess, the old systems are crumbling, but they're kind of even further crumbling, and the new whatever system or whatever groups of people are trying to take over these shells of institutions or nodes in these networks that have some sort of power. It's very amazing to see what exactly it is in this area. In New York State, it's a mix. I mean, we got the Warehouse Worker Injury Reduction Act got passed. Kathy Hochul signed it into law.
And what's included in that?
Yeah, so as far as I remember, understand, I think that Amazon and other warehouses that fit the requirement will need to hire a nurse for somebody that has that equivalent qualification for what they call AmCare. And then also have to hire ergonomic experts to go over process paths or go over the jobs and see kind of what these jobs are and then figure out how to like make them safer. But I think it's always for our purposes as organizers, and just like with the Warehouse Worker Protection Act, make it clear to Amazon management, we know about this law. It's put in the law precisely because of Amazon, and that we as workers, if we organize and we take our workplace safety seriously and each other's safety seriously, then we can come up with the systems, keep each other safe, that management might not like, but I think we have a right to safe working conditions, and we definitely have the right to. We most definitely have the right federally to say no to unsafe working conditions.
And we also have the right to strike.
Yes, we also have the right.
We have the right to strike, exactly. And you don't need a union to have the right to strike. I feel like it's not that widely known, but indeed, You don't get fired for striking. I mean, I'm not saying there's zero risk that there will be illegal retaliatory attempts at disciplining you or firing you. You can't guarantee that outcome. But the reality is it's simply against the law to be retaliated against or fired for striking.
Right.
And just because they fire you with some evidence of a, minor policy violation doesn't mean that they're not acting in retaliation. And it doesn't mean that they can't be found liable for retaliating against you.
No, exactly. I think we need to do more education on that, the different types of strikes. That a contract, while that's our goal, we want to be clear about what the requirements are and have it all written out to hold that management accountable. Because right now there's very little on writing. My vision of the union, there's the workers coming together, but also looking out for each other, but also being at the forefront of changing society. Because as long as we have to sell our bodies to make money in order to afford the necessities of life, we're not really that free. I mean, winning a union and winning more money, that we have more opportunity to stay away from work. I ask this to coworkers all the time. It's like, because if workers ran the world and ran society, what would workers decide were important and necessary work? And how much should they get paid? I would like to think, and I think that we would pay child caring and care work a lot higher. That would be a higher paid job, taking care of the elderly, disabled, but also the young, the next generation, teachers, et cetera, et cetera. Like, how many hours of work a week would we have to really do in order to keep this whole society going? And which job would people want to do? I tell people I'd do pretty much for societally necessary job. I'd do anything for like 20 hours a week and have a good living. And it's a not very desirable job, and people still need to do the less glamorous work, I guess.
And they can collectively organize to ensure that they receive a premium for that work.
Right, exactly,
right?
Yeah. So, for instance, like healthcare workers, they give up some of their freedom for the greater good, so we'd all have freedom, right? But then understanding, I think that it's getting worse and worse, and that's why we're having all these healthcare workers that are being administered. We need to spread that risk so that, they have more freedom, so they have better working conditions so that they don't get burned out. And also there's just like the amazing amount of inefficiency and unnecessary people who make lots of money denying and hurting people. It's just like, that's, I don't think, the way that workers would organize society.
We don't have this sort of built-in cultural structure where it's like, oh, we take holiday in June or July, right? Where we're basically out of the office for like 4 weeks, right? We don't have that kind of culture. And as we make inroads in labor and get contracts for places that have for decades not been seen as unionizable, in terms of framing our potential demands, a new paradigm of time should be considered, where it's not just like, it's definitely going to be 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, a little PTO, whatever. It's more like we need a different schedule that is based on our lives being in better balance.
No, I think if we want to deal with the climate crisis and the ecological crisis effectively, and to be a amount of distress that people are undergoing, having to work 68 hours a week just to survive, there's so many unnecessary jobs and a lot of people have jobs who are there to make other people's lives more difficult. I think we can go towards like a 20-hour work week or something like that. Right. But not at the expense of workers. Of course, you say that, and then people are like, oh, I can't live off 20 hours a week. No, it's like 20 hours at 40-hour pay, at least. A living wage, as they say. The original fight for the 8-hour day and the 40-hour work week was 8 hours to rest, 8 hours for yourself, and 8 hours to work. So, thinking of that as a rallying cry, like, we're not just cogs in a machine just supposed to work all the time. We work in order to live. And part of living is practicing your religion, having cultural traditions, playing games, getting good at stuff, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah. Participating in politics, going to a meeting once in a while that you really don't want to go to.
When you kind of view it through that lens, I really do see in a deeper way that there is some of the problems in our society are really due to the deprioritization of everything but work. Maybe you have an hour or two with your family or whatever you do, right? But basically it's like, get to work, get to work. So we really just don't have a society or a culture that values much of anything other than running these
Yeah.
enterprises. And sure, running enterprises is important. Like you want to be able to eat, you want services, you want to
Hmm.
be able to live a life, but like we neglect so many other things. We both agree that labor right now is kind of that unique opportunity in terms of a collective mindset and building power for the most disadvantaged in our society, which is the broad working class and the middle class as well. So it's not all labor, but labor is a huge part of this, and I think can be the catalyst for really reimagining our priorities in society.
Yeah.
Because once the working class, frankly, gets paid more, and we will, by the way,
Yeah.
it's
We
going to
have to.
happen. Yeah, we're going to win some battles, lose some battles, but we're gaining all the momentum. Forget what administration is in. Forget about the labor board. I mean, being recognized, you don't even have to be recognized to shut something down.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
I
Right.
think we're going in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think having control of our own lives is also, the money part is, I think, and talking to people about that, I have freedom to do stuff. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Us who are trying to do, let's say, a lot. I think both of us might be in that wavelength of, trying to really get a lot of things going on and,
yeah.
make a lot of action while still doing that 40-hour at Amazon, right?
Right. Right.
And it's frustrating because in some ways we are superficially embodying the grind set. To participate in this activism, to participate in this media landscape, I'm a musician, I write music. Like, there's a lot to do. I'm an artist. I burn both ends of the candle. I admit it.
Right.
I often don't sleep full night's sleep. And gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we were able to get the Amazon situation straightened out
Right.
and then, I can be 20 to 30% more productive in all the other areas. And even if you don't have this sort of loaded type of agenda or schedule, you'd be like, wow, I have more moments to spend time with my family, my close friends, my faith community, whatever it is. You would just simply have more real living experience. I just want to give you an opportunity to just sort of appeal to people who are not necessarily in some of these hotspot workplaces, but just want to be aware of the movement and possibly contribute or in a way where they're using their time to help the cause.
There's definitely different ways to get involved. I mean, there's an Organizing for Power class coming up. If you're interested in organizing your own workplace, that's an online class that starts on February 13th. There's two different tracks. You have to have a group of 10 people ready to go. Even if you can't do any of that right now and you have your job and whatever your situation is, having conversations with people, and if people could help spread the message of that there is more to life than just work and money, and that this system is really not working for most people. But yeah, get involved in your community, like go to different events, talk to your neighbors, see what they're about, like build a community. We don't have to agree on every little thing, but that the rich are getting rich and the poor are getting poorer and that we're getting screwed over.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the highlight of all this. And like I think we are kind of at this point because we've just seen so many things happen on the global and national stage in terms of far right political takeovers and conglomerates sort of coalescing around some of these people. And it's just turning into an ugly situation. If we just focus on the things that we control, like which is our communities, like our homes, our neighbors, our friends, we don't have to judge them through this lens of what's your political checklist, what's your political party, because most people are just given a very limited range of information, whether you're talking about outlets like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. People are given sort of scripts of political opinion, broadly speaking. Obviously, some of us might dig a little deeper or read heavier journalism or read history more. But most people are not particularly well informed about the broad process of our political system. So at a certain point, it's kind of worthless to be judging people based on
Oh yeah.
affiliations. Forget about it. Like, yeah, don't tolerate direct hate. But like at the end of the day, as long as people are coming into dialogue from a place of like respect and common understanding, I think by moving on from this like sense of political animosity, we can focus on the big picture, which is the wealth inequality. Bernie had it a decade ago. He was right a decade ago.
Yeah.
He read the room. But the thing is, things have gotten worse since then.
Yeah, there's some progress being made. I mean, but at the same time, yeah, the wealth quality has gotten worse. I think the problem is that we don't live in a very democratic political system, and the only ways that we're going to be able to get around that is, since we live in a pretty segregated country still, geographically, labor unions and people who, on the surface, only the one thing they have in common is their employer. They all need money to pay their bills, and they have lives outside of work, and they might look a little bit different. They have different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, I think 99.9% of us all want to spend more time with our families or people we love, and to be respected at work, and to get to cultivate our talents and be appreciated for whatever talents we offer the world, and also to be able to have people believe in us that we can develop more skills or more of our capacities.
We just have to get people to understand the power specifically in their workplace. And right. Nick, thank you for being a friend and a partner in that with me at Amazon. You've taught me a lot. And thank you for coming on today.
Well, thank you, John, for heeding the call to get involved, be part of this movement. I think we're going exciting places, but we can only do together. So I appreciate you having me on to talk about all this stuff.
All right. It was great to talk.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for listening to Malmborg Report. If you enjoyed this episode, follow me on social media at It's John Malmborg and subscribe to Malmborg Report on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Want to stay in the loop? Sign up for my email list at johnmalmborg.com. And if you'd like to support the show directly, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Malmborg Report. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.